as a parent of 3 children in 3 different public school districts, or excuse me, schools throughout the San Diego Unified School District, I really have a vested interest in the safety of our schools and how that translates into the community at large during this worldwide pandemic. And, you know, the bottom line is really that the community caseload level determines across the board the safety of our kids in schools and ultimately the community at large. And, you know, I'm going to quote Gertrude Stein, who famously wrote, "A rose is a rose is a rose." We also need to be clear as a nation that when it comes to reopening schools safely, that safe is not safe is not safe. First and foremost, no school can be called safe without following appropriate mitigation factors such as wearing a mask, at least 6 feet social distance, washing your hands, proper ventilation, etc. And our kids deserve a quality return to school. And to me, it's not one with more, you know, quantity of days, but where we, you know, can really get back to school and stay there once we return. And that's, you know, going to take a lot, you know, funding and of preparation on not only the school's part, but also our community. Our educators and our students are rising up to the challenge in an unprecedented and difficult time. And, you know, their positive results deserve certainly to be recognized as well. And, you know, it's true that online learning has been difficult for many students and families. However, it's also true that a majority of students are succeeding academically during online learning. And so, you know, we really need to make sure that our focus is regarding distance learning rather than focusing so much on, you know, implementing or trying to put out arbitrary dates where we can't, you know, we've learned that the pandemic, this particular virus, is unpredictable, and we're learning as everything comes along. And, you know, we've currently got the B.1.17 variant that has come into play here in California, especially. And we also have now the South African variant, a variant that has showed up in our state. And so we really have to take the opportunity to look at what has happened in Europe as well as in South Africa, that in the information that we've got coming out of there to our advantage, in the sense that we need to make sure that we are heeding the warnings that were not heeded by our federal government back in late 2019, early 2020, where we were warned about this particular virus, COVID-19, and how it would potentially play out if we didn't start implementing mitigation factors and working toward trying to keep transmission down. And so, you know, we've basically, our inability to, you know, protect ourselves has caught up to us on multiple occasions, and we really need to step back and consider everybody that's involved. And, you know, I wanted to say that, you know, Dr. Fauci has said many times that we need to focus on what's necessary to get our schools open in such a way that keeps them open by implementing mitigation factors that translates to low community spread. So that ultimately keeps our children safe, teachers, families, and our community at large. And right now, the pandemic is raging so far beyond control that it you know, can be contained only with deeply unpopular but necessary measures, such as, you know, like I mentioned before, mask and closing bars and restaurants, and require testing and so on and so forth. Also, you know, pointing to, we've seen a few instances where there've been pediatricians that have come out and said that kids need to be back in schools. However, you know, researchers at Stanford School of Medicine suggest that schools can only reopen safely if they follow a set of strict and expensive guidelines to avoid COVID-19 infections among our students and teachers. And, you know, I want to just sort of on a side note say that, you know, we are seeing where there are some different procedural calls that are being made and changed with regard to how children's health care is being handled. And so we are seeing where pediatricians are possibly seeing an influx of students, but that are children, because that is, really a procedural change rather. And one last point I would like to make is, while distance learning is undeniably inequitable when it comes to access, resources, and support during distance learning, that the devastation of this virus is inequitable as well. And as a Native American myself, it's the absence of equity that has driven these families, such as mine and other Indigenous, Black, Brown families who want to keep their children at home. It's understandable for all parents to be angry and frustrated and stretched thin, but it's also alarming to see these white parents and caregivers employing terms like equity in supposed support of low income and Black, Latinx, and Indigenous students returning to school, when most of these families of those same students are saying clearly, like myself, that we prefer to stay at distance learning because we have immunocompromised family members. We also live with multi-generational family members as well. And so, we're stating clearly that we want to stay or prefer distance learning because of the concerns where we might lose one of our, major providers for our family if they were to contract COVID-19. And while there's a lot of people out there that are saying that schools are safe, the science points to schools being sites of community transmission. And it's becoming more and more clear that children play, a more important role in the spread of this virus than was originally believed. And so while it's equally alarming to see so many powerful pundits and politicians claim equity is a reason to return to in-person school, I'd also add that, the significant number of these same families are really asking to be heard. And I believe is, the sort of this, like I would say, the silent majority of people. And that's why myself and others here today are stepping forward saying, we have an important voice in this too. And we want to make sure that we hear what these communities have been speaking for and saying that they actually want for their own children. And we need to be listening. We need not to just be picking and choosing which equity talking points fit in our own agendas and self-interest, so that maybe we're using equity that's weaponizing the experiences of Indigenous families like myself, or Black and Latinx and low income youth, because it aligns with what others want personally. But we must do better. And the final thought is, we definitely need to be listening to our community and making sure that we're not speaking for members of the community, that we don't have these politicians speaking for us, that they really need to be listening and hearing us out, because this is a very scary time. We're all in this together. We've got to consider each other. And one death is one too many. So we really need to pay attention and begin to start valuing the lives of those around us.